Welcome to Vegan Method. In this video I'm making cheese, olive and spring onion bread rolls. If you like what you see, please feel free to like, subscribe or leave your comments below. To make these delicious steamed bread rolls, what we need is 200 grams of tomatoes, half a teaspoon of yeast, 300 grams of plain flour. I've got some olives which are stuffed with garlic, spring onions and a tub of vegan cream cheese. The first thing I'm going to do is to chop the tomatoes into quarters and then I'm going to blend them. You can use a stick blender, but for this recipe I'm actually going to put them into the blender and whiz them up until they're nothing but juice. The seeds and the skins can go in, that's no problem. Just chuck them in and whiz them up. The next thing to do is to add the yeast into the flour, just sprinkle it around, and then I'm going to add the chopped tomatoes into the flour and mix it thoroughly until I get a nice dough. With any dough you can add a little bit of extra water or you can add a little bit of extra flour depending if it's too wet or too dry. This actually worked out alright with the measurements that I had originally, so I'll speed this up and you'll see the dough very shortly. Now I've got a nice soft fluffy dough, I'm just going to cover it and leave it for 30 minutes at room temperature. Because the yeast is in there and I didn't use hot water, it won't grow too much. So when you come back, expect it to be roughly the same size. While the dough is resting, I'm just going to slice the onions into really thin slices, and I'm also going to do the same for the olives. 30 minutes later, I've now got my dough and I'm just going to flour the side and I'm going to roll out the dough into a thin rectangle using a rolling pin. I've put the cream cheese in a bowl and I'm just going to add the spring onions and give it a thorough stir to mix the spring onions into the cream cheese. This then gets spread evenly across the bread base. So once all the cream cheese is on the bread, we're then going to sprinkle the olives on there as well, and the next stage after that would be to roll the bread up into a giant bread sausage. Once the bread is rolled up, I'm then going to put some flour on it just to keep it nice and dry, and then I'm going to chop it into even pieces, put it on a chopping board, and then I'm going to leave it for another 30 minutes. Another 30 minutes has passed and now I've got myself a steaming tin and I've put some baking paper in the bottom of that, and then I'm going to place the breads into the steaming tin. I'm going to put it onto some simmering water and let it steam for around 12 minutes. So 12 minutes later, and the breads smell amazing. I've got a frying pan with some coconut oil and I'm just going to pop the breads into the hot oil, and technically I'm sealing each side. It makes the bread crispy. You'll see that in a second, but just going to pop them all into the frying pan, fry them off for a few minutes, turn them over and then they're ready to serve. Just going to chop one in half to show you what it looks like, and it's crispy on the outside and it's soft in the centre. You get the full flavour of the olives and you can taste the onions and the cheese. It really is a delicious and simple recipe. If you like recipes like this, please consider subscribing. I'm always making nice and simple veganised recipes, and as always I'd just like to thank you very much for watching.